American businesses have already started to strategize on tapping into the Cuban market once and if the embargo is lifted. However, our next guest says only certain businesses will thrive on the island because of the Cuban government. Small and medium-sized companies should avoid doing business in Cuba, and he says, and he will tell us why. We welcome Marco Vicenzino, Global Strategy Project Director. Welcome to Rise Exchange. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, so let's start with the concept of the embargo. First, do you think there's going to be a lifting of the embargo, in what areas?
Very, very difficult. You have on one hand a symbolic move by the president, very symbolic one in terms of diplomatic recognition, but the embargo still remains intact. It can only be lifted by the Congress. With a new Republican Congress coming in particular Republican Senate coming in January, it's highly, highly unlikely.
Okay. So for the areas where there might be some movement, let's say you run a business now in the United States and you want to do business in Cuba. Anything you could do to prepare for that?
Well, actually, there are American companies selling to Cuba and have been selling in Cuba for certain years, but you need permission from the U.S. government, and it's for specific sectors. American agricultural company has been selling to Cuba, but they're offered no lines of credit, and it's just cash. They have to pay cash for what is sold to them. And I think for now, the status quo will remain that if you have something to sell to the Cuban government, you will need permission from the U.S. government.
Do you think, therefore, that big business are the businesses that are going to get involved?
If non-American companies that have been operating in Cuba tend to be the big ones, sort of like if you look in the tourism sector, Meliá, a Spanish hotel chain, they've been working there probably for more than 20 years now. On the commodities front, Canadian companies operating in the extractive industries, specifically nickel. So in terms of big companies, foreign companies operating there, they will continue to operate there. In terms of American big companies, over the years, they've been keeping a close eye on opportunities there. But once again, if there's not a radical change, if the embargo is not lifted, you still have that only avenue of getting permission from the U.S. government.
And you caution that small businesses should not get involved.
Very difficult. If you don't have deep pockets and you're not there for the long run, it's extremely, because what happens is that there's regulatory changes in the environment. These are not just American companies. I mean, overseas companies, whether they're European or different parts of the world, when they go into Cuba, you're talking about a country whose the bottom line is any reforms or changes that might take place in the private sector is for one reason: preserve and maintain the status quo.
Well, and you're right. I mean, we should remember there is no rule of law. There is no law of contracts.
Exactly.
You can go set up shop there, and they can take all of your property.
There can be contracts, but the problem is that there can be arbitrary changes to it.
Sure.
There's no legal certainty. I mean, small Cuban families that have been operating businesses or little hotels out of their homes, laws can change overnight.
Are you getting calls from clients saying, okay, I'm ready to go to Cuba and do business? Are you starting to get
years, I've been asking questions about it. Yes, there have been calls have been made, but it's more out of curiosity than actually wanting to do business there.
Do you think that there is going to be a real opportunity in the next 5 years or so?
It all depends upon, I think in this case, it's more about the Cuban government. How much are they willing to open in terms of political change, economic change, changes on various fronts? Remember, Raul Castro made a speech in recent days after
communism is here to stay.
Exactly. He says, and he made that clear, and he made that very unequivocally. He made that clear. So as long as the objective is to maintain the status quo, it's difficult to see any radical changes in terms of American economic policy or the lifting of the embargo specifically.
Okay. Marco, thank you so much for your time today. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Okay, Happy New Year. Time now for our business ticker.